Hi, this is Brock Sumner in digital production, and I'm recording this to walk through the process of importing an Illustrator file into After Effects, so we can see what happens based on the way the Illustrator file is laid out. So to start, I have a random file I grabbed. I don't recall exactly where it's from, but by way of an example, um, I've tossed it in there, and then on here, just trying to click around the zoom feature, you can see that it's a pretty standard themed file. It's got some familiar line art in here. And this is often the way that Illustrator files are laid out, and there's really nothing wrong with this at all. We can see multiple artboards with line art, and on the right side here, everything's in layer one, and then there's all these groups. And most illustrators work this way because the groups basically work as containers in and of themselves, and there's really no need to have it laid out any other way. But when we go over to After Effects here, what I'm asked for me when I'm working with the file, After Effects asks me footage or composition. In footage, I have the ability to import a layer. Now, After Effects is only able to see layers. It can't actually go past that first part with just layers. So I'm asked only about layer one. Or likewise, if I go to composition, I can try to pull in the whole file, but as you can see, it'll only go with one artboard because similar to layers, After Effects will only pull in the first artboard that it finds. So in this case, we tried to pull it in. We got the first artboard. It contains just the one layer. And I might be able to create a vector layer from there. So this is still something that I can work with in terms of here. You can see that there's the different shapes right there. We can see that the groups break out into different shapes once I grab a vector. That's fine for simple things like this, for example, but with something more complicated, maybe that's not perfectly ideal. So if we go back to Illustrator, I have another file here, and this one I've arranged in a way that maybe I would arrange it preparing to create an animation, which is a very, very familiar look and shape. And some of the differences we'll see here is that the artboard itself is just the one, and it is 1920 by 1080. The reason I did that is because for the most part, that's the size of most frames that I work in and the purpose of my animation. And it's just this is more of a convenience thing. I think the highlight is that there is only the one artboard would be the biggest ask. But 1920 by 1080 is purely for the convenience because it handily matches my frame anyway. And then among these things, I have broken out the different groups and paths into different layers. Now, as we saw in the other one, I am able to pull paths from groups if it's only on one layer, but they don't come through terribly cleanly. So just for myself, I have this lined out with the labels. If we go back to After Effects, and then we try to pull in this other version, you can see on here, I'm being asked the same question. We've seen this before. If I wanted to do just the one particular layer, you can see here that I can actually see within After Effects what it is I'm pulling in. On the composition setting, which tends to be, I tend to import most things like this. In the composition setting, if I open that up, I can see every layer here. It is 1920 by 1080. So as we were zoomed in for the smaller artboard, this time we're given a composition that is handily already the resolution we tend to work in. And down at the bottom left here, you can see all the different elements neatly laid out for me. So I'm able to perfectly do it. And then I even left myself a shape reference in case I'm moving things around and I lose track of exactly how it should line up. Now, again, this is all purely optional things, but just quality of life decisions. If I had wanted to, I could have left, going back to after Illustrator, I could have left all of these elements within one layer, for example. I chose not to, just for myself. But the key points to keep in mind would be that the After Effects can only see the one artboard. So what we're looking for is to have only one artboard available within the composition. And all the different elements can be stacked even haphazardly within here. I don't have an example offhand, but as you could see with this, as long as it's on its own layer, After Effects is able to figure it out and make it work. So you could, for example, for something more complicated, have a series of a bunch of icons available within an Illustrator file. For example, going back to this one, and as long as there's one artboard and all of these different symbols are their own independent layers, if that gets dumped into After Effects, like we saw, is going to be able to look at the different layers, especially in footage mode, and quickly identify which one I need in the moment. So anyways, this was created as part of larger discussion about working more collaboratively. None of this is really anything that's required. I'm able to do these things on my own, easy peasy. I'm very used to seeing all sorts of Illustrator files. But I did want to create something to provide more insight into what the process is even like, so that as people start to work with other programs or we start to work more collaboratively, there's more insight into the process. I will be creating some documentation to go with this as well, so it's going to end up on the handbook page. And I look forward to future iterations. Thank you.